The U.S. strikes in Iran target bridges and power plants, but their goal remains unclear. Is it to weaken Iran's military or push it to negotiate? Without a clear strategy, these actions risk escalating tensions without achieving lasting peace. Meanwhile, Iran claims a full-scale war, while the U.S. focuses on degrading infrastructure, leaving both sides in limbo. Every night, U.S. warplanes strike Iran bridges, power plants, airports near the Strait of Hormuz to weaken its ability to disrupt global trade. But this war of attrition risks escalation, a prolonged conflict where both sides wear each other down without clear rules or victory. Iran's small missile boats still threaten ships, while U.S. strikes may push Tehran toward retaliation. The goal? Pressure without full-scale war, but every strike carries that risk. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical waterway where about 20% of the world's oil passes daily. Iran controls this choke point, using small boats to disrupt shipping. The U.S. strikes bridges and power plants to weaken Iran's grip without starting a full-blown war. While oil prices dip slightly, Iran's influence remains strong. Is this a calculated move or a risky game of attrition? President Trump threatened to bomb Iran's power plants and bridges, but called off strikes before they happened. Was this a bluff or part of a strategy? The U.S. now targets Iranian sites like Bandar Abbas, aiming to weaken its military. But Iran still disrupts global trade with small boats in the Strait of Hormuz. No one knows if these strikes work or if we're heading toward all-out war. In the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. and Iran are locked in a hidden battle. Every night, American warplanes strike Iranian bridges, power plants, and military sites, aiming to weaken Iran's grip on this vital waterway. But here's the problem. No one knows if it's working. Iran's small boats still patrol, disrupting global trade. Iran's small boats still patrol, disrupting global trade, while oil prices dip slightly after attacks. Is this a careful push for peace or a slippery slope to all-out war? Without clear rules, every strike must make things. President Trump once threatened to strike Iran's power plants and bridges, but called it off at the last minute. Was that a bluff or part of a hidden strategy? Both sides are wearing each other down. But how long can this go on without escalating? In the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's small boats still patrol like shadows, ready to disrupt global trade. The U.S. strikes bridges and power plants, aiming to weaken this threat, but no one knows if it's working. Oil prices dip slightly after attacks, but Iran's grip on this vital waterway remains tight. Is the U.S. playing a dangerous game of attrition, or is this just the opening act of something far bigger? The U.S. wants to stop Iran's nuclear program and missile threats, but Iran keeps adapting. Every time the U.S. strikes a site, Iran shifts its approach, making progress unclear. Is this a game of chess or a race toward chaos? Without clear rules, every move risks escalation. Meanwhile, Iran's small boats still disrupt global trade in the Strait of Hormuz, showing that pressure isn't enough to break their grip. How long can this push and pull go on before it spirals out of control? President Trump is set to address the nation tonight from the East Room, not the Oval Office, focusing on election integrity and federal voting rules ahead of midterms. But will the speech unite America or deepen divisions? Meanwhile, the U.S. is locked in a hidden war with Iran, striking bridges, power plants, and military sites in the Strait of Hormuz. The goal? To degrade Iran's military capabilities and pressure them into negotiations. But without clear rules, every strike risks escalation. Oil prices escalation. Oil prices disrupt global trade. Is this a careful push for peace or a slippery slope to all-out war? President Trump is set to address the nation tonight from the East Room of the White House, focusing on election integrity and federal voting rules ahead of midterms. But here's the catch. Major networks like ABC, NBC, and CBS might not broadcast it live. Why? Because they see this speech as too political, not national or global enough. This isn't the first time. In 2022, networks declined to air President Biden's primetime address for similar reasons. Meanwhile, the U.S. pays to air President Biden's prime address for similar reasons. Is engaged in a hidden war with Iran, striking bridges and power plants in the Strait of Hormuz. The goal? to degrade Iran's military capabilities and pressure them into negotiations. But without clear rules, every strike risks escalation. Oil prices dip slightly after attacks, but Iran's small boats still disrupt global trade. Is this a careful push for peace or a slippery slope to all-out war? While the U.S. and Iran clash in the Strait of Hormuz, another battle rages closer to home. Thick smoke from Canadian wildfires chokes New York City, turning skylines hazy. Meanwhile, gas prices dip slightly after attacks, yet Iran's small boats still disrupt global trade. Every strike aims to weaken Iran's military, but the fallout is felt in our own backyards. Is this a path to peace or a slippery slope to chaos? Two U.S. carrier strike groups packed with warships and aircraft now patrol the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point for global oil trade. This isn't just about military targets, it's an economic blockade. Over 10,000 sailors enforce it daily, cutting off Iran's ports after Tehran broke deals with Washington. Gas prices dip slightly, but the real test is whether this squeeze forces Iran to negotiate or pushes them further toward war. Every ship in that strait is a pawn in a game no one knows how to win. Every action has consequences, even in immigration and energy markets. While the U.S. strikes Iran's bridges and power plants to weaken its military, the ripple effects hit home. Thick smoke from Canadian wildfires blankets New York City, turning skylines hazy. Meanwhile, gas prices dip slightly after attacks, but Iran's small boats still disrupt global trade. Two U.S. carrier strike groups patrol the Strait of Hormuz, enforcing an economic blockade to cut off Iran's ports. Over 10,000 sailors enforce this daily, testing where pushes Iran forward war. Every ship in that strait is a pawn in a game no one knows how to win. The U.S. is striking Iran, repeatedly targeting bridges, power plants, and military sites, but no one can say for sure what it's really trying to achieve. Is this about weakening Iran's military or pushing them toward negotiations? Meanwhile, the ripple effects hit home. Wildfire smoke chokes New York City, gas prices dip slightly, but Iran's small boats still disrupt global trade. Two U.S. carrier strike groups now patrol the Strait of Hormuz, enforcing an economic blockade that tests whether first